On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, Mr. Sullivan, when the season is all said and done and we look back on it, who could we bestow the Foo Fighters Award to? And what is the Foo Fighters Award, you ask? That is a player who breaks out. You like that? See what I did? Yes, you do. Let's talk about that. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you're subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. When you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. All right, today, sir, we're going to be it's sad, but I don't want to end the show on a downer, but Katie Gaus is no longer with Altitude, so we will talk about her. We'll get to a listener question that is not from subtext, and there's a reason why it's not from subtext. We'll get to that in a little bit. It's about Gabe Landeskog, but where we're going to start today is, like I said in the intro, breakout players. So you hope you get those one or two of those every year, guys that just exceed expectations, have that quote unquote breakout year. You could even say Nathan MacKinnon had a breakout year last year if you wanted to, right? So I got some people from subtext chiming in on this. So let's go there. Like where could it be up and down the lineup? Take your pick. Whoever you want to throw out here, throw them out of guys that have that season that you knew that they had that in them, and it just maybe didn't materialize. And this was the year that you can look back and say 24-25 was where player fill in the blank really took the next step and broke out.
Number one on my list would be Casey, insert middle name here, Middlestead. And he had a short sample size, a lot of potential coming into Colorado. Just a little bit of time in the Avalanche jersey, but now he's had an off season. Now he's had a training camp, preseason. He's had a whole off season with these guys, and you want to see Casey take that next step up. We talked about in a lot of our off season shows, like it's so refreshing to have an established 2C in theory, and it's Casey's turn to take a step up and establish his presence on that second line and make that his own. And I feel like he is going to get, like, he's had 44 points. That's his career high. He can easily get that with some comfortability on this team and working with his line mates and establishing himself for possibly 82 games in an Avalanche sweater. It's going to be a breakout season for Casey.
I'm going to go right to subtext because Vargar threw him out there. And I think he's probably at the top of a lot of people's lists. And I think the first thing that Vargar says is kind of what was in my head. He says, I want to say Middlestead because he's never had a great team around him. I want to say that's not a knock on Buffalo, but that's kind of a knock on Buffalo. You know what I mean? They just did not have how many players over there could have had great seasons, and they've had guys that have had good seasons. I'm not trying to completely, drag them through the mud, but he was there long enough where it's like you got the most out of what you could get out of him there. And this is like, okay, is this just going to be you're bringing a guy in that's on a much better team, and just because of what's around him, his numbers just go through the roof? Yeah, it could be that simple. It could. You don't have to make this convoluted or congested or anything. It could be just that simple as he's on a much better team. So just by happenstance, the points are going to go up.
Yeah, and you saw the amount of time it took a fellow Sabre to acclimate and finally come into his own in Jack Eichel. And it took him a minute, and he finally got going. And I feel like going through an offseason where it doesn't have to be solely on you. Like, you get to talk to Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen where it solely was on them for such a long time. And they understand what Middlestat had to go through. And they can show him how you play on this offense where you're not burning yourself out. And it's not do or die just on you. And you can acclimate your entire line through your potential play. And I feel like Casey getting settled in to a kind of a better roster, I feel like he's really going to settle in and get some touch 50 points easily.
Yeah, I think you saw glimpses of what he could do. And like you said, having a full off season, having a full training camp, having a full preseason. I'm not saying he's just right off the bat just going to be, you're going to see what Casey Middlestat will give you for the full season. It might still take him, like it does any player with a new season, and still in a new town. Maybe it might take him a couple weeks to get going, but I just feel like once he gets going, he's going to be that Valanciunas. Once he got going, he was, he put up numbers. Jonathan Drouin, once he got going, you saw him put up numbers. So I think it's going to be in that realm where Middlestat's going to be, breakout. Sure, I think it could be have that potential. Yeah.
And that's my breakout number one. I have 3. Mm-hmm. He's my breakout number 1 because of comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is going to be because he's been so uncomfortable, and that would be Ross the Boss Colton.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we talked with Adam about when he came in, of what Ross could bring to this team and how he was viewed in Tampa Bay. And how he could be part of this new Tampa Bay offense, but they decided to go back and take care of their old guys. And now Ross comes to the Colorado Avalanche, and things were great. He was on the Roaring 20s line until it fell apart, and he kind of limped to the end of the year. Off-season comes around. Who's mentioned as a trade piece? Ross the Boss Colton.
Okay.
And everywhere he's going, it's, hey, things are looking great. It's a step back. This isn't going well. He's had a whole offseason. He's ready to acclimate with this team. I feel like Ross is going to go out there. He's got his Roaring 20s line back. He's going back, and he's going to get comfortable, and he's going to make a name for himself where it's going to be hard to say, yeah, he could be a trade piece. No, he wants to be here. He's excited to be here, and I think he's going to make his name here next year.
I had a fine season. I don't, but I think, and we talked about it. I think just the line mates that he had just were different all year long. They just didn't have that consistency with that Roaring 20s line. So you want to keep, if the line is working well, you want to keep it together as long as possible. It just couldn't happen last year. It just seemed like, every few games he was with different line mates. But that's not an excuse, right? Like we say that about like Nathan McKinnon. Doesn't matter who's on his line, he makes those guys better. Colton needs to do that this year. You can't make excuses for him in that realm. And I think, not you, but like a lot of people, including myself, like to do that. We just did it with Casey Middlestat, where we say like, oh, now that he got there at the trade deadline, now he's got a full off season, full training camp, whatever. And you do that with second year guys too. And that's Ross Colton. So I thought his first year in Colorado was fine. Is there more meat on the bone for him? Sure. Why not? I mean, I don't think anybody is going to say like, oh, I reached my full potential last year. And no, I think if you get what you got from him last year and a little bit more in the points department, maybe not take some silly penalties, which he took, you have a fine third line center here who you root for because he puts 100% all the time. So could it be a breakout year for him? I don't see that because I don't see the production just going off the charts. But in terms of like, consistency, that's kind of what I'm looking for in Ross Colton. And that's not really, I don't want to say it's like, it might not be in his hands. I think it's about the players around him. If they can kind of that 20s line can stay together, I think you're looking at Ross Colton in a different way because he's manning that line. So I don't know. Is it breakout potential? I don't I think you're getting what you're going to get out of him. I don't think you're going to get any less, but you could get a little bit more, sure.
Yeah, I feel like he's just going to take this year in his career, honestly, because he's never really reached that next step. I feel like he's going to put it on his shoulders and take that step this year, no matter what lines around him. I feel like he found a good thing in the Roaring 20s line. When it fell apart, he just kind of was there. He ended the season with 40 points, and I feel like he's going to take it more on himself to make whatever happens work.
Katie over on Subtext, sticking with the Roaring 20s line. She doesn't say Colton, but she says Logan O'Connor. She says with Colton and Wood, he was so good last year before the injury. I think he comes back this year fired up, and he has a nice big season again. Yeah, Logan O'Connor was having a monster year, and then it just hit a wall because of the injury. So, but there you go. Like one hand washes the other with Colton, LOC. You can kind of make the same argument for both of those guys when they're playing on the same line. So there you go. Who's the third one you got?
And now this one's going to be interesting. It's going to be loud, but he got loud last year. That'd be Taser.
As far as breakout, okay.
He's had back-to-back 50-point seasons. That's nice. That's wonderful. But he called out the effort of the team last year, and you saw him kind of. We mentioned this all the time when the captaincy conversation comes up, that he has this role and this rapport with Bednar. And I feel like he's going to take it up another level, especially with everything that we said with Cale Makar. Somebody's got to be facilitating those points to Cale. And I think Taze is going to take that next step and really push it up to maybe a lot of these guys you think you're with Middlestead, with Colton, and with Taze, I feel like they're going to add another 10 points to what they had last year, because they are going to take this step up because they believe in everything around him. And I think you saw that with Taze getting frustrated to the media. And I feel like he's going to take another step up and look at his line mate in Cale Makar and say, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to leave it all on the ice and set an example. And I feel like he's going to do that this year.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. That's not really, going off on a limb there, but I agree with you. I think he's taking more of a leadership role. So we'll see what that.
Yeah, taking more pride and leadership and touching career numbers where he can look back and say, guys, I did everything I could. I'm leading by example. Follow me or get out of the way.
I want to give so we had Vargar and Coy both said Justus Annunen.
Interesting.
Which I'm all on board for that. Definitely think that has potential. And breakout for him wouldn't mean setting the league on fire. It could just be like
taking the 1A.
Yeah. Or solidifying the 1B and then going from there. So breakout doesn't mean you're making the all-star team. So yeah, definitely could be for Annunen. And a new subtexter here goes by the name McKinnon29. So I don't know. I think we might have Nathan McKinnon himself signed up for our subtext.
Hey.
He says his dark horse pick, Sam Malinsky.
Ooh.
And I like looking at rookies and not that Malinsky is like a full-on rookie right now, but guys that just have not either yes, full rookies or someone in like Malinsky's world. And seeing like, okay, who could be that guy? Who's that guy that hasn't had a lot of time at the pro level? And at the end of the year is like, whoa, sure. Could it be Malinsky? Why not Kovalenko? Why not Kovalenko?
Boy, he's been feisty this offseason too. I've been seeing a lot of Kovalenko popping up, and that's been interesting to watch. And I can't wait to see what he looks like after preseason and the camps on where he ends up in this roster, because he sure is loud. And I'm talking about his play.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it's always fun to see who the potential guys that could happen, and then kind of monitoring them throughout the year. So we'll kind of obviously be checking in on these guys, and the more that you have guys in this world, the better you're off, the better your team is. So we'll have to see where this all goes. All right, let's get our first break in, and then when we come back, we are going to get a question outside of the subtext world and overseas. Locked on Avalanche, crossing oceans. So we're going to get to that right after this. All right, let's hear from FanDuel. Why? Because we love sports and we love them so much that we never want them to stop. But of course, the NHL playoffs and the NBA playoffs are over. The Olympics are officially over. No more breakdancing, Kyle. So
Tom Cruise jumped out of a building.
Tom Cruise is, why is he everywhere? It's unbelievable. Him and Snoop Dogg are just everywhere. So yeah, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, but the Tom Cruising is cruising like we want them to. And FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All we have to do is open up the app and dream up sports bets anytime we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so I have chats with people like followers of the show, either on Twitter or Instagram, whatever. And we have this one listener, Kenny, who lives in Finland and loves the show, chat all the time with him, really cool guy. And he wanted to join subtext, and I didn't know this. Apparently you can't if you're overseas. I don't mean, or even in another country. Can you, if you're in Canada, can you? I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I thought this was just open worldwide. Apparently it's not. So I'm going to find out about that, but he could not join subtext, and he sent in a question, and he sent it through Instagram, and he sent it audio because he was in the car. So I am going to play the audio, number one, because he words it very nicely. And the accent is just top of the line. It's wonderful.
We're going locked on worldwide. Mr. Worldwide. Look out, Pitbull.
Prestige worldwide right here. So, all right, we're going to just have him ask the question, and then, we'll answer it on the other end.
Hope you are all well. Love the show as always. Question for you, though. Talking to you because I'm driving and I didn't want to forget to ask. What would happen, or what stance would the team take if Landeskog comes back and just isn't performing to the level that the team wants? Do they move him down the lines? Does Landeskog himself take himself out of the team and push himself to early retirement? Do the Avalanche offer him an upstairs position to maybe take his salary off the books so that they can bring somebody else in at the trade deadline? What's your thoughts? And would love to potentially hear it discussed on the show.
Kenny, I could listen to you talk all day, my man.
Well, Kenny, we're not only discussing it, but we're hearing you on the show.
Yes. So, and it is a good question.
Yeah.
Because we're always talking about whether or not Gabe Landeskog is going to come back or not. And the conversation stops there. It's either like all in or no. Like, yes, he is, or no, he's not. But what if he does come back and, like Kenny asked, like he's not performing like he wants to, or the Avalanche want him to or need him to? And he asked, like, what do you do with him? Do you move him down the line? Then you have a $7 million player playing on your bottom six. Does Landeskog just say, like, I tried and it's not working? I will be the one to say, like, I'm hurting my team more than I'm helping. Do the Avalanche make that tough decision and go to him and say, like, hey, man, we might have to move on here? Like, it's a really good question, because I honestly was not thinking of all of those scenarios. I was just thinking, like, when is Gabe Landeskog going to come back? And then sure, like if he comes back, it's not just a slam dunk. He's going to be his former self, but there could be other questions here that Kenny threw out there that need to be answered this season, during the season. So what do you think?
I think Kenny answered the question in his question. And this goes back to, because I've been a vocal guy saying he's not coming back. And this goes to Gabe Landeskog's pride. The Avalanche have rolled out the red carpet saying, this is on you. And Landy's going to get out there. He's going to skate a little bit, and he's going to see the speed of his team, how it's constructed. And it's going to be one of those that he's going to, after a couple games, if he's not there, he's going to say, guys, I just can't. Thank you for the opportunity. I've tried my best. And he's going to.
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I just feel like he's going to say, guys, I can't do this to the level of my team. It's been 3 years. I've tried. Thank you to the organization for allowing me this opportunity to come back. But my body just can't keep up with this team. And they say, hey, Gabe, that was wonderful. Here's a suit. You are now special advisor to Chris McFarland, and you are up in the booth.
He is getting, whenever that day comes of whenever he calls it a career, he's getting some job in the front office. We know that. But I don't know, like I wouldn't, because you said like after a couple games, I think it's going to go more than that. I don't think it's because like you said, he hasn't played in 2 seasons. So you can't not play for 2 years and then after 2 games be like, nope, don't have it. If the knee is hurting him and bothering him, maybe. But if he's got to get back into what it's like to play in an NHL game, which should not, I'm not saying, it should take half the season, but it'll take more than 2 games. So I think after every game, they're going to kind of monitor and on a scale of 1 to 10, Gabe, how you feeling? And if that just game after game is in like, a 1, 2, or 3, then you got to have a tough conversation. But who starts that conversation? Is it the Avalanche or is it Gabe Landeskog? Is Gabe Landeskog just going to try to keep pushing and working through this? Or is he going to be smart enough to be like, nope, can't do it? And like Kenny says, like $7 million, that can go a long way towards something. Or do the Avalanche approach him and be like, hey man, don't they? Or it could be a combination of the two. I feel like the two of them have good communication, good rapport. So it really may be a non-issue on who approaches who. I think they are both going to be honest with one another, and doctors are involved too and all that stuff. So it is an interesting question on, sure, when he comes back and then it's the monitoring game. How long does that go for if it's just not going the way that anybody wants it to go and he's not producing the way that he knows he can produce like he has in the past?
It's taken at least 3 years to get on the ice. It's not going to take him long to figure out how long he can stay on the ice. And that's going to be the number one thing.
It's when you say that out loud, though, you got to give the guy a little bit of leeway for not playing for 2 years. But again,
how much can you max out that need to get it to where you want it to be? Like how much?
But if he's feeling like, no, the knee's okay. I'm just like, I wake up in the morning, I'm not having knee problems. So now it's just getting my game back. Okay, then we'll give you a little bit more time. But if you're waking up and you're like, the knee's aching a little bit, got to go for treatment, and you're not practicing because this is a Peyton Manning thing. Yeah. Remember the last year of Peyton Manning's career, right? He never practiced and he was just playing games because of the neck, I think it was.
And he was, so stiff. Barely could, it was bad.
If it's that, then we're having a different conversation.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it goes. But thank you, Kenny, for tuning in across the ocean, spreading the word of Locked On Avalanche in other countries. Gotta love it. So
we're international now.
All right, and we'll get a last break in here, and we come back. Katie Gaus no longer with Altitude. We'll do that next. All right, so Monday morning, you sent me a message and said, hey, Katie is no longer with Altitude. She had just posted a few minutes earlier that they let her go. And Katie Gaus, who obviously the side rink reporter for Altitude for the past couple of years, and she put up a post saying that they were not picking up the 3rd year of her contract. And it's kind of sad, man, because like, I don't know the details of it, and she didn't really give out the details. And that's really, she wants to, she can, but other than that, the bottom line here is Katie Gaus is not going to be talking to you on the air over on Altitude. And it's sad because I thought she did a tremendous job in that role. And she was becoming one of those people who just was like a staple, and you just figured that she was going to be there, and it never really crossed my mind that she wasn't going to be there. I feel like people who are in her position leave the Avalanche or leave Altitude for something bigger, right? And you saw it last year with Peter Baugh of The Athletic, who was covering the Avalanche, and he left, stayed with The Athletic, but where is he now? He's covering the Rangers.
Yeah.
So you go to a bigger market. And I feel like that's what happens. And you saw that with Lauren Gardner. You saw that with Lauren Jabara. They went to higher up, if you want to say, positions. But this one's different because Altitude let her go. So I don't know what the change is going to be, and if they're going to have someone replace her or whatever the case may be. But this stinks because she was excellent at what she did.
Yeah, and Katie, friend of the show, she's been on the show.
Yeah,
we got to talk to her. That was an awesome conversation. And yeah, the two Laurens, Lauren went to WWE and NHL Network, and Jabara went to NBA TV. And for Katie not to get picked up in her third year is head scratching, because I thought she was probably on par, if not as good as the rest of them.
Oh,
she was doing incredible, had great charisma. You could tell she loved the game, understood the game, all angles of the game, loved the women's aspect of the game and growing the game with the youth. So I don't understand. And once again, Altitude, what are you doing? If it's a day that ends with Y, you can ask the sky. Altitude, what are you doing? And they don't have an answer. I think this is a big loss, big misstep, because Katie was incredible.
Like you said, like when she was on the show pretty soon after she was hired by Altitude. And that was the year after they won the cup. Well, I think she was hired during that postseason, but wasn't on air, I think. And then really didn't like start getting on air until that after they won the cup in that off season. And yeah, when we had her on during that off season and grew up in a hockey family. So like she didn't just go to school to do sports journalism and fell into hockey. She wanted to do hockey. And you could tell, like she loved being at the rink. She loved talking about the game. She loved talking about the Avalanche, loves animals, loves dogs, and did a lot in the community with animals. Like you said, the youth, the women's leagues. She I don't know how she had time to do all this stuff, but she did it wonderfully and beautifully. And it's sad. It's sad that, and I don't know. I'm not going straight to wanting to crucify Altitude for this because I don't know the full details. And maybe they do replace her with somebody, and whoever they replace her with, I hope they do a good job too. But you're replacing someone who had a short amount of time here, but definitely left an impression.
No, and what Katie would do for like PHF, and just it was incredible. Just her love for the game. And anytime the door was open and had to do something with hockey, she was there. And whoever has to fill the shoes of Katie, good luck, because it's hard pressed to find somebody who loves the game of hockey as much as Katie did, and she will be missed.
And wherever she goes and whoever nabs her is got a really good one. So it's our loss, and whoever gets her's gain. So, but for while you were here, Katie, great job. Thank you for doing what you did. And like you said, like definitely going to be missed. So, all right. And that will wrap it up for today's episode. So thank you everybody for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow, and we got some good stuff lined up for that episode as well. So make sure you tune into that one. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.